All right, there we go. Let's get our Facebook folks in here. Spinning wheel going. Still going. Oh, man, that Facebook group has been having an issue. Let's get that guy. Come on. Come on. We believe in you. There we go. All right. Welcome in. Welcome in. It is Tuesday evening, the 18th. Time for an episode of Building the Broncos. I am Nick Kendell and joined by Carl Dumler. Carl, how you doing? Looks like you got a little bit of a tan going there, maybe. How was your time away?
Yeah, it was good, man. Getting to sit on the beach for a little bit and collect shells and eat a lot of food.
Mm.
You know, when you go to one of those all-inclusive places and they've got the big buffet line, you can choose everything and anything you want. Man, it is good living. I'll tell you that. And then all you can do drinks and yeah. So I'm trying to do exercise to come back from vacation here.
Yeah, it's hard for sure. What was your favorite thing you ate?
They had this. So we went to one fancy, like they have like 5 restaurants in the place. And we went to one fancy one, and they had this like chicken stuffed with kale and some kind of seasoning. And but it wasn't that actually. It was the dessert. It was these what were they? Rum balls.
Okay.
So rum, chocolate, raspberry, a little bit of everything. Oh my gosh. Like I could have had just an entire meal of those and been a very happy man.
That sounds very good. So, well, glad to have you back. Make sure you guys click the thumbs up on the way in, and let's say hello to everybody in the chat as we get it going. We got our guy Dylan Von Ark saying, "Sup Broncos country." Make sure you hit that like button on the way in and share on all platforms, and also subscribe if you haven't already. David just stopping by to say, "Have a great show." Well, hopefully you're hanging around too, David. If you got any questions for us, hit us up. We got our stars coming in here. David Mickelrath, always good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good Father's Day. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country." Nick, Carl, and Deacon Scott. He says, hashtag 12 and 5, hashtag Buckham 3 times, hashtag MHH for life, hashtag Denver Broncos for life, hashtag Bo knows, hashtag Knicks for 6, and hashtag Bo leave. So not leaving, but be leave. So Bo leave. We got a new one there. It's like, hopefully that doesn't have a worse meaning later, but we're in the Bo leave stage for sure right now. Thank you so much for the super chat, David. Good to see you. And I hope you are doing quite well. Mike Gasson here saying, "What's up, Carl, Nick, Dylan, Scott, and Broncos country." Kevin Gray, evening, guys. Big Mile High salute to you. Broncos country as well. Colin says, "A positive Broncos story." Yeah, well, it's there's positives on this team from the national media for sure, individual player wise, and Surtain's always a positive. We got about time, says Mike S as well. We got Doug coming in and saying, "What do you think about Dondrea Tillman? He could be a nice pickup." This time of the year, when you have these guys coming on and off the roster, I'm very much I'll believe it when I see it with any of them. Maybe that makes me a pessimist or maybe it makes me a scientist. I don't know. But if a guy like that's been available for every single team, this at their OTAs even, and then you pick somebody else up, we'll see how camp and everything plays out, and they'll have a chance, but very, very much a long shot. Like you talk about like undrafted free agents being long shots. This is like even more of a long shot of making a big role, but you never know.
Yeah. I mean, you try to find players from anywhere and everywhere. I mean, Broncos have a couple players from overseas. We'll see if those guys can work out. Obviously now a guy from the UFL. I'm glad that they're turning over every stone, just like every team should be doing, because like I said, you never know. You might find that one hidden gem that just happens to turn into something. And the Broncos have been great at finding hidden gems throughout their history. You think of like Rod Smith, Terrell Davis as a 6th-round pick, Chris Harris Jr., of course. You've got a couple other running backs that were undrafted guys that have turned into something great for you. So you never know. It'd just be a pleasant surprise, I guess is what I should say at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's out there at the UFL, right? He's 6'3", 270 pounds, been productive out there for the UFL. UFL still relatively new enough to me that it's not the same level of competition and talent, even though they're more full-grown adults than a lot of the college games. But like Ohio State versus Michigan is going to have more talent on the field than a UFL game. So we'll see what happens here. And still, he's been productive. Then never hurts to look under those stones, as you mentioned there. Good to see you. Thank you so much, Doug. We appreciate you coming in and saying hello. Always appreciate you. We got Daniel Berry Sports saying, yo, good to see you. We got our coffee supplier, our dealer here, Patrick, saying, aloha, boys. He messaged me the other day. He must have a sixth sense because my coffee supply was starting to get a little low, and I found an email saying, hey, how you doing? I could use an up. I could definitely use an up. So Patrick helping me out. Thank you so much, Patrick. Always great to see you. Hope you're doing well out there in Hawaii. We got Roy coming in saying good evening, Nick, Carl, Scott, and all of Broncos country. Awesome to see you, Roy. And Roy says, sounds like the Broncos still not happy with the linebacker position. Like you said, people come and go. I mean, this isn't an edge rusher, right? 6'3", 270. I can't think of a single. I mean, linebacker is edge as well for a lot of teams, but I can't think of a single linebacker in the NFL that's 270 pounds. They're more in the 230, 250 range these days. I mean, the 250s are even rare. But this is a pass rusher and an edge body. So we'll see. Exciting. I mean, the more pass rush you can get in, the more chances you have a shot. Those kind of guys, the better.
Yeah. We've talked about it on here. The Broncos have so much unknown at the edge position. You want to get as many eggs in that basket as you possibly can to hope that a couple of them turn into something good for you. So, like I said, I don't mind the move one bit. I don't expect the guy to make the roster, but if he does and can make a real impact for this team, I mean, that's just more power to the Broncos. And it also sets them up for the future of, UFL players when they have 5 or 6 teams fighting for them. And they see, hey, Broncos are the ones that gave this guy a real shot to make the roster, and he did. Good chance they're probably picking the Broncos in that situation if they feel like they can make the roster. So, like I said, not a big move that's going to move the needle for me for the season by any means, but still, hopefully we'll see something good.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't know about this edge rusher position yet for the Broncos either, right? There's a very, I think, not a great chance, but a small chance that you could see one of Cooper or Browning moved, right? You have an opening there with Sanders. Lord knows what his exact role was going to be this year, but definitely not having a role now after suffering the Achilles tear. You have Ellis, who is stood out in rookie OTAs and whatnot, but what does standing out mean, right? Like we've talked about it on here a lot. Like the Broncos backup tackles are dreadful. And if you're beating those guys, what does that actually mean? It's better than not beating them, that's for sure, but we'll see. And then, you talk about the depth of the edge rush in your spot. I mean, you're talking about going up against like a Ronnie Perkins, not Andre Smith, excuse me. Where's the next line there? Thomas Incoom.
Yeah.
Thomas Incoom. Jalen, I don't even know, to be honest with you. Jalen Allen, college free agent this year. Nachemi, Darrell Nachemi, I can't even pronounce it, from Maryland. So you're talking back end of the roster guys. Maybe somebody, if he can make a practice squad and be one of those like call-up guys, special teams value, we always talk about that as well, then there's a chance. But edge rusher spot, there's a lot of bodies up top, but maybe, that last spot, maybe somebody gets moved, all possible, and create a spot for somebody like that on this defense.
Yeah, no, you're right. None of these guys are safe at this point. I think there's going to be a pretty good competition, and somebody's going to be left out between all those guys. I mean, obviously Jonah Ellis is going to make the team. I think he's probably the only edge guy that's guaranteed. Nick Benito, I guess, would be the other one.
Yeah.
Beyond them, like I said, Baron Browning could be a trade partner. Jonathan Cooper is another one, just last year of their contract. Not sure if they're in the long-term plans by any means. So it's very much a very open position at this point. And we got Michael coming in saying, good evening, Nick and Carl. I'm building the Broncos. Go Broncos. Michael, thank you again for the stars. Always great to see you in here, and appreciate everything that you do for these shows.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael, coming in and supporting the show. If you guys aren't as generous as Michael or Papa Bear, that's okay. It's, times are tough. I get that. Click the thumbs up. We'd appreciate that a heck of a lot. And Doug really just driving it here for us. Appreciate you, Doug. Also, the other news today that I saw, Lucas Krull, Broncos undrafted free agent out of University of Pittsburgh, tight end, was invited to the tight end university, which is led by Kittle and Kelsey, and there's another big name there as well out there in Nashville. So good to see Krull get invited. He's obviously somebody who is fighting for a large role on this team. I mean, there's a reality where he ends up being the number one target getter at the tight end position for this Broncos roster, especially with Dulcich, held out again. Has Dulcich even ever participated in an OTAs? This is his third time. I think he's been held out every single time. But yeah, there's a good to see Krull out there. Hopefully he can add some nuance to his blocking ability and become somewhat of a security blanket. But he seems like a pretty good find for the Broncos. I mean, a lot of times, like we talked about, undrafted free agents, pretty hard to find the roster. Like right now, if I was like in hindsight, I'd be like, oh, that guy probably should have gone in the 5th round. That's kind of like the range of his play so far and my expectation for him this season.
Yeah, it's tight end. I mean, we've talked about it in the past. The position takes a few years to really see what you've got.
Unless you play at Iowa.
Well, of course. And your name is Sam Laporta or something like that. But they just take a while. And so you never really fully know until you get into the right situation. And even then, like I said, you need quarterback, you need offensive line to work, you need a lot of things to make them be able to function at a high level. And so if Krull can be that next guy that comes in and proves himself, Shannon Sharp, was he a 7th round pick?
I think so. Right?
Yeah, he was pretty late in the draft. And he turned into a Hall of Famer. So anything's possible. And if the Broncos could get something out of the tight end position that nobody expected this year, oh my gosh, that'd be just such a huge boost to this roster. Because most plays you're going to have a tight end on the field, and you need somebody that you can trust to go make a play where teams aren't sitting there going, oh, never mind, don't have to worry about that guy. He's not doing anything. That's what the Broncos had last year. Like teams just ignored the tight end because they knew they weren't going to do anything. You could leave a linebacker on them, even a slow linebacker, and you were going to be fine. You could have the worst coverage guy, and they were still going to be able to hold their own. And it allowed you to put more coverage out there for everybody else, or bring an extra guy for a blitz or whatever. So, like I said, to have something at the tight end position, it just changes how teams have to play you.
Yep. It's not a position I would sink 1st-round capital in, just because I think a lot of teams don't know how to utilize the tight end position. It's a very different game from college to the NFL. So trying to translate and evaluate those guys, the projection from college and NFL is very hard. It's why a lot of times teams, the guys who end up working are just the biggest, fastest athletes. And they are crafted, and it takes time to learn the spread, no blocking NFL concept stuff that you see a lot of these teams running to the NFL level, where you're much more in line and having to be a part of the protection package. But yeah, Krull, good to see him out there. And the other tight end who is running the camp, I was right, it is Kelsey and Kittle, but also retired tight end Greg Olsen is the other one running it as well out there in Nashville. So again, Broncos got him off the Saints practice squad, if I'm not mistaken. That means they probably still have 3 years of control left with him as well, 2 or 3. So if you can get anything from him, especially for a team that's very much in the red in terms of dead cap the next 2 seasons, that's a huge get. He doesn't have to be a superstar. He just needs to be a positive contributor to the offense. So that spot is wide open for targets, and wide open for us. $10 coming in. Daniel Kraus. Thank you so much, Daniel. We appreciate you with the stars. Really, really supportive and helpful, especially this time of year. The stretch between mini camp and then or OTAs, mini camp, and then football will be here before you know it. But this is definitely the slowest period of the year. So we really appreciate the support, Daniel. And happy Father's Day to you and yours if you have kids or anything like that. If not, happy Father's Day to your dad. We got Phil coming in too, saying good evening, Nick and Carl. Who makes the team in the running back room? Always good questions from Phil. We appreciate you moving it along. Who do you think makes the room there, Carl? I'll show out the names right now. We got Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine, Audric Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin, Blake Watson, and Tyler Beatty, also still on the list on the depth chart. I think you're muted.
Oh, yep. Sorry. Let's start with the obvious one that's going to make the team. Audric Estime. That's one. I think they're probably going to keep 4. So then I think Jaleel McLaughlin, from everything I've heard, he's put on some nice weight this year, hasn't lost his speed. I think there's a really good chance he makes this roster. And then I think it's going to come down to either Perine or Williams. One of the two is going to make the roster. And I'm going to give the nod to Williams. Part of that just being he's a 2nd-round pick. I think he's going to be given more opportunities to go out there and thrive. And so I think he's going to be a 3rd one. And then I do think Blake Watson makes this roster. He fits a lot of what Sean Payton likes out of the running back position, that versatility to be a good runner and a good in the passing game. And I think he can help on special teams as well. So I would say those are the four that make it. I think P. Ryan's the man left hanging. And the other part of it is he saves a little bit of money too. I think about $2.5 million by him being cut. So I think he's got an uphill battle to make this roster. You agree, or any other? How would you order it?
Well, the first caveat is, knock on wood, of course, but running back such a volatile position with injuries that this might settle itself out over time because somebody might get a ding. We're still kind of waiting. I haven't heard very much about the scope with Estime. You say it's obviously makes a roster, but it's possible that, the knee is not great and he is shelved for a year. I mean, we want to see what the progress is following that scope that he had. He's still really young, but maybe it's, a redshirt season for him. If that knee is not 100%, maybe just to stash that body without having to have him account for the roster math. After that, I'm with you. I think some football account that's an aggregate account that I don't think posts always the best stuff. Talked about Javonte Williams being on the outside looking in, and I think that was taken and ran with because people observed non-padded practices and not actual football on the field and be like, oh man, Williams doesn't look good when they're not tackling and they're not in pads. It's not his game. I mean, I'm not shocked by that. So I think Williams is safe barring an injury. I'd be pretty shocked if he isn't the starter come week one. I think McLaughlin makes it too, but man, McLaughlin, I love the jitterbug stuff, and I love how he's been working, but he's got to improve in the pass game in all aspects right now because he's a total tell in pass game right now because you're not accounting for him as pass protection. He is dreadful there, and that's something that P. Ryan does bring. I think it's probably, unless there's an injury like Estime or something out, then that changes the math, but it might be a Watson versus P. Ryan discussion there. And because P. Ryan is such a known commodity as a pass catcher out of the backfield and a blocker, even though you can save 2.5 is nothing for me compared to getting somebody who helps my quarterback more. So if I trust P. Ryan more than Watson as a pass catcher and a pass protector, then he still makes the roster, and it's Watson on the outside going in, looking in, maybe practice squad if somebody picks him up. Guess what, folks? You can Watson caliber prospects you can find every year at the running back position, so I won't shed a tear unless he goes on and is amazing. Then I'll be upset. We'll see what it looks like through preseason and everything. But right now, I think you're probably your top guys there. And I also think if you want to talk about Burton, fullback spot, just the special teams value, he makes it too. But we're watching Estime's knee, and we're watching between P. Ryan and Watson.
Yeah, no, I can get on board with that. I guess part of me was just going the 2 and 2, 2 smaller guys, 2 bigger guys. And just so if Williams goes down, you still got Estime coming in the running game if his knee's fine. If McLaughlin goes down, you still have Watson. But like I said, you can probably get Watson on the practice squad and be fine and bring him up if there is an injury like that and not worry about it. I mean, I know a lot of people
every year it feels like, oh man, we can't waive this guy. He's not going to go to the practice. Somebody will pick him up.
Yeah.
That hardly ever happens. I mean, maybe 2 to 3 to 4 guys a year. The only one I can think of for the Broncos that's happened recently was there's that wide receiver King. I think they took him in like the 4th, 6th round and they waived him and the Panthers picked him up. He never did anything in the league. I mean, God bless him, made the NFL, but that's I wouldn't be too upset about it.
Yeah. Rarely do you see that player go off to the other team and become something great, because one, they're walking into a brand new system, brand new situation. They got to get used to their new teammates. It takes time for all that to develop. I mean, that's why they have this training camp to get you ready for the season in that sense. So the odds of them having that success with the other team is pretty rare. Like it's usually, there might be those players that you cut that a year later go to another roster and get that time in the off season and become something. That happens all the time. But like I said, just going from last game of the preseason to all of a sudden a new roster, it doesn't happen well usually. That's why even trades mid-season, a lot of times those don't work out because it is just a whole new learning process to kind of get you up to speed. And you're coming in, 8-10 weeks into the year already. And now you're expected to hit the ground running, and it just doesn't always work out very well for you.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. We got Doug also with the positivity, saying everything's heading in the right direction this year. This can only be good for the team, hopefully. But I'll tell you, Doug, to quote Scott, misquote Scott, but every single team pretty much feels that way right now. So things can come crashing back soon. I love the optimism, but seeing is believing. That's why you want to let the sample size gather up a little bit, in my opinion, of course. But I'm always, letting it play out.
I will say it feels more relaxed this year, a little bit more organized. You had Sean Payton, a bunch of new coaches, new systems coming in. The whole Russell Wilson coming off a really bad year. Who's going to be in charge in the building? Is it Russell Wilson? Is it going to be Sean Payton? There's just a lot more chaos last year compared to this year. It seems like everybody understands what their position is, what they're supposed to be doing. Coaches feel more comfortable. Even Sean Payton has talked about it. Like last year, how did he word it? He was the dog or the cat pissing on all of his territory. Like he felt like he had to do that to kind of establish himself. And I mean, you could tell the way that he interacted with media, like, man, he hated the local media. He just couldn't wait to just kind of be mean to him. Some of the players didn't quite get along with him as well as you would like, mostly Russell Wilson. So this year, it just feels like it's more, everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. Everybody seems to be on the same page, and they seem more organized. Now, whether that shows up on the field, we're going to have to see that.
Yeah, we'll see. We got Alabama Shagreen saying, I'm feeling good about 2024. Krull will dominate. F these haters. I don't know if we're the haters here, but if so, I'll own it, I guess. I think Krull will be good. He'll be fine, especially considering he was an undrafted free agent that they picked up off another team's practice squad. That's a heck of a get. Good job by the pro scouts there in Denver. Phil McLaughlin says, who will be our return guys? Will we send 2 guys back? Phil, this is an excellent question. I need to see how the process plays out with the new rules being implemented. And I talked about this, I don't know with you and me, Carl, or whatnot, but I think there's going to be a lot of different tactics about how this works and how this goes. And then eventually we're going to get data and teams will see what's working the best and they'll start to copy what's working. So will it be 2 guys back? If that works the best, maybe. I think you probably still have Mims involved because he was so good there last year as the punt returner. Maybe he's in the kick returner, but maybe you want a bigger, stockier guy. Maybe it's one of the running backs, or Riley Moss was an awesome returner at the University of Iowa. Maybe he can return them. I just want to see how it plays out in practice because it is going to change the game a good bit.
Yeah, I agree. We don't quite know how this is all going to, NFL teams don't quite know how this is all going to play out. You're right. Mims probably for sure will be punt returner. Some of it depends on how much they really want to get him involved in the offense too. Like if he has a much bigger role in the offense, then you're going to limit a little bit what he does on special teams. And, they might be keeping some bigger wide receivers this year because of trying to work on that special teams. So maybe you see like a Devon Bailey. He's got pretty good straight line speed. He's big, he's strong. Maybe you start looking at a guy like that to try him out and just see what he can do with these new rules. I'm trying to think running back position. None of them have that kind of speed that you'd like, at least that, and the speed and size, I guess I should say. So probably not any of those guys. Any cornerbacks or anything like that? Like you said, Riley Moss. Mm-hmm. You got Tremon Smith, I guess is another one that they've used on special teams before. So there's a few names that they'll give a try to and just see what works.
I mean, we talked about the running backs earlier too. I mean, fielding might be a question mark for some of them, but that's an area where if Watson or P. Ryan or McLaughlin are awesome there, different conversation, different skill set. So I'm really fascinated how that all plays out over time. I mean, maybe it's even a Vele or somebody big. I want to see what it looks like for them. And special teams always been fun. I mean, I've always liked special teams. Now that when they changed the rule and it's just booting kickoffs to the back, that kind of stunk. It's like, okay, we're just practicing this until we have another commercial break coming up. But now that's going to matter. So excited for that. And also excited for some positivity about the Broncos, as we saw some comments in here from Colin. Broncos have, according to Pro Football Network, one of the best young players in football. Patrick Surtain comes in as the number 4th best player under 25 years old in the entire NFL. And the header of this article says, young, talented players are the lifeblood of every NFL franchise. Youth reigns supreme at most positions, with NFL teams deriving most of their value from players during their rookie contracts. Who are the best 25 players under 25? They rule out Micah Parsons, just turned 25. Justin Jefferson's just turned 25. Can't use them. They'd have been number 1 and 2 on the list. But after that, they also didn't include any rookies. So Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., et cetera, not on the list this season. But you do have Denver Broncos Patrick Surtain II, number 4 overall. They write Patrick Surtain wasn't quite as dominant in 2023 as he was in 2022 during his all-pro season, but that's the life of an NFL cornerback, even an elite one. The Denver Broncos defense was a disaster early last season, and Surtain's coverage numbers dipped during that stretch. Still, he's typically as consistent as any corner in the entire league. While he was mentioned as a speculative trade candidate, probably more so for media than the Broncos, as Denver pursued a rookie quarterback, Surtain was too valuable for Sean Payton to give up. He should rebound in 2024 if the rest of Denver's defense plays up to par. Surtain's perfect technique lets him cover any receiver in the NFL. So Surtain, number 4 overall, I think they did a pretty good job writing that up. I mean, he was out there in the rumors. I think that was more from media than the actual Broncos themselves, but really good to see somebody like Surtain listed that high in the overall players. No other Broncos, unfortunately, make the list. We can circle back to that here in a second, just kind of talk about maybe some other guys who might make the list a year from now.
Right.
But thoughts on the list and Surtain being number 4 overall? Too high, too low? Is that a good recap? What do you think?
I think it's a good spot for him. Like the article said, he did have a little bit of a down year, even if it's not fully on him because of the rest of the defense just being so terrible. There were still some plays that he had some uncharacteristic out of position spots. Just a few plays. I'm just like, what are you doing? And maybe that's just because others don't know what they're supposed to be doing. It kind of reflects on him. But still, he's on a Hall of Fame projection. He's probably one of the top 3 cornerbacks in all of football. I know they have one ranked above him on this list. But I still would probably take Surtain over him. Mm-hmm. And the one they have above him is the Jets cornerback, Sauce Gardner. I still think he's better than him, just because I think he's got a little bit more versatility, a little bit more overall game than what Sauce brings to the table. Now, they're close. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to discredit what Sauce Gardner brings to the table, but I'd still take Patrick Surtain over him. I guess when I was looking at this list, the thing that kind of shocked me was it feels a little bit bleh for a list like this. Probably the bottom 10 on this list. I'm like, oh man, they made the list. There's not somebody better than them. Like number 25 was A-Chain, running back for the Dolphins. Now he's great when he's healthy, but I mean, he only played in like 11 games last year.
Yeah.
And that guy's already one of the top 25 of the young players in the NFL. Now, part of it also could be just a lot of players are coming into the NFL a little bit older. So they don't have as much time to make an impact to get on this list, where in the past you had guys that might not make it to age 25 until the last year of their contract as a rookie. Now we've got, the Broncos. Well, Knicks can't make this list ever. Even if he is MVP this year, he's not going to make this list because he's not going to be under 25 next year when the season starts. And when I was looking at the Broncos roster, I'm like, man, almost every one of these guys is 24, 24, 24, 27. It's not that they have an old roster. It's just that they've got a lot of players that are right at that edge of turning 25. So, yeah, like I said, it just was a list that I was like, I just would think that there'd be a couple more better young players in the league than there really are at this point.
Yeah, I might take a little exception with this list to an extent. They left out, I mean, they have, not to call them out, I appreciate them doing this, Dallas Robinson over there at PFN, but he says honorable mention, Trey Smith listed on the honorable mentions, but also Trey Smith is listed at 23 overall. So that's when I'm like, okay, well, they left off Drake London, I think he should be up there. George Karlaftis should be up there. Xavier McKinney just got a huge contract. He should be up there over A-Chain. So I think that it's a little bit, some of it's questionable. And I'd also have like Christian Barmore, defensive tackle, should be higher. You have Will Anderson was awesome last season. He probably should be higher. They didn't evaluate, or they didn't weight positional value too. Like if you took all these players and put them in a draft, like Trevor Lawrence is going off the board first, right? Like he just is. We saw what he just got paid, right? That's what the market is. So it's not purely based on value, but overall, like it's Madden, right? Would you rather have the 90 overall quarterback or a 98 running back? Give me the 90 quarterback, right? But even though if you sort them by overall, the running back will show up first. The guys listed above Patrick Surtain, I agree with you. I would have Surtain over Gardner, but I think they do a pretty good job listing two of the guys over PS2, and both from that classic historic. I mean, can we call it historic already? It's a really great class, 2021 class. Jamar Chase there at 3 overall from the Bengals, wide receiver, and then Penny Sewell, number 1 overall to the Lions. I probably would have Chase number 1 personally, but it's a good list. And then also, I mean, I said Lawrence should be number 1 overall, but Stroud is on that list too. So I don't know. I probably would have had really weighted the pass rushers and quarterbacks a bit higher if I was redoing this list myself, but it is interesting to see. And I think, Carl, as you pointed out, it seems a little bit ho-hum, this list does. I think that's more of an indictment on the 2022 and 2023 draft classes. They're just really lacking star power right now. Just weren't great classes. I guess the Broncos losing out on Russell Wilson stinking his bad and giving out the pick stinks. But those top picks that they gave up weren't in spectacular draft classes, right? Like you're talking about, gosh, who are the top? Cross, offensive tackle, and Weatherspoon. Weatherspoon makes the list. He's good. But, you know, you're not talking about, I think, future future Hall of Fame types. So I think that's probably the big impact here is 2022 and 2023 draft classes are fine, but they don't have star power. Did I freeze or did you freeze? Oh, it must be Carl there. Hello. Are you back? You're back. I don't know what happened there.
Sorry. Internet just quit for about 2 seconds there. I don't know what it was doing.
I can never tell if it's me or you. I heard a shriek upstairs, so I thought maybe it was me.
No, it was me. No, you're right. You look at the 2022 class. You've got Sauce Gardner, of course. Derek Stingley's been okay. But that was the Trayvon Walker draft. Aiden Hutchinson's been good.
Hutchinson might already be 25. No, I can't believe he's not. Is he on this list? I didn't even see him.
I think he was on the list.
He's 8.
I think he was like number 8. Yeah.
He should probably be higher too. I don't know. I'm very positional value pilled. Give me, pass rushers, quarterbacks, offensive tackles, defensive tackles all day. But I digress.
Yeah. But I mean, you look beyond the first round of the 2022 draft. There's not a whole lot of names that just stick out and say, oh, yeah, that guy, he's doing something good in the NFL. Deron Bland would be one in the 5th round there of the 2022 draft. He might be the top guy beyond the first round. Brock Purdy. Yeah. That would be another one. I'm not sure. He's older. Would he be 25 now?
He'll probably turn 25 this year.
Okay. I couldn't remember off the top of my head, but you're right. No, they haven't been the best draft classes, which is part of why when we're talking about, okay, well then who of the Broncos could join this list? Part of me probably thinks you got to look a little bit at this last draft class, the one we just had in April, that might be the draft that you're looking at. But again, because Bo Nix can't make the list, so your next one would be Jonah Ellis. He's a possibility. I mean, if he turns into something more than people think, he could definitely join the group because he's only 21. So he's got a few years to really build his game up to make this list. I guess anybody in the chat, if you have a name that you want to throw out there for the Broncos, like I said, a lot of players, unfortunately, there's a ton of players that are 24 and older on this roster. 24 to 27 is. Mm-hmm.
Is that Carl again? You need to let me know, Scott, if it's me or Carl. Okay, it must be Carl. The Broncos are very much an older roster, and that's something that's an issue. And sadly, unfortunately, Bo Nix will never be on this list because it's an off-season list, of course, and he's already 24 years old and will turn 25 in February. So he will be aged out before being on this list, of course. But guys, with Carl having the internet issues, I'm going to hit one more question here from Todd. Then we're going to wrap it on up. It says, riddle me this, Nick. Which free agent is most likely to stick and find the trick to be a starter out of the Broncos? I mean, I think it's probably going to be, off the top of my head, I would go with Roach. Just because he seems like a glue guy. He's still relatively young, and he has an obvious role to this team as well as a run stopper. So I think he's got a chance to be a starter, so to speak, as that 0-1 technique type, and somebody that can be a starter out of the signings. Jones makes a lot of sense as well, of course, but safety is a little bit more fickle, and I just want to hype up the big guys. Give me some defensive tackle love. So I'll go with Roach.
I mean, Levi Wallace stands a good chance of starting this year just because of that unknown at the number 2 cornerback, but I don't think he gets to stick.
No.
I think he's a 1 year, and if he doesn't work out, then you're really looking at that position to draft next year or bring in another free agent. Kind of like this last year where you had cornerback, you brought in free agency, he started most of the year and then moved on. So he could start. Like I said, I don't think he's going to be sticking around for very long.
Yeah. Probably not. And the only other guys on this list that I think, maybe have a chance, or not on this list, but on the Broncos, did want to give a shout out. Hopefully it's Marvin Mims, right? He came in really young. He's somebody who still have the special teams ability as well, but there's a pathway for him to have a lot of targets this season. And it would be unbelievable for the Broncos if he played well enough this year to be on a top 25, under 25 list next season. So we'll wait and see, but that would be good things for the offense. Michael Ronquillo comes in and says, great show tonight, Nick and Carl, and building the Broncos. Go Broncos. Pearl says, thank you for a great show today. Now counting down to the training camp and the Olympics. I mean, maybe this is un-American of me. I know Scott's probably enjoying it, but the Euro Cup's been fun so far as well. So excited to see how my Germans tend to do. That's my heritage, of course. So appreciate you guys. As Carl's freezing it up, I'm going to wrap on to the show, guys. Appreciate everyone. Make sure you're following Carl on Twitter. Carl's at Carl Dumler, MHH. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, follow us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as that ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. It helps us a heck of a lot. Click the thumbs up on the way out. Would really be helpful for us. Shout out to our star givers today. We got David Mickelrath, Michael Ronquillo, Daniel Kraus, Phil McLaughlin, and Michael again, of course. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for all the great conversation as well. Hopefully Carl can get that internet. He brought the Jamaica internet back. What's going on, man? Or Carl's still in Jamaica? Maybe this is elaborate ruse out there with the green screen going on. He's on a beach somewhere with a pina colada, but appreciate everyone. Have a great rest of your night. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. And as always, go Broncos.